Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the third session of our Lunch and Learn series. And happy Thanksgiving week. I know you all are excited as well as I am to be on the cusp of a long, well overdue break going into the true fashion of the holiday season. We're going to go ahead and get started. Today, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day and joining us during your lunch break. Today, we are going to be focusing on our third session of our NC SIS Lunch and Learn series. So today, we are going to be talking about the enrollment roll forward process. And if you would, if you are just joining the call, please mute yourself. Thank you so much. On the screen, you will see the link to today's presentation as well as the QR code. On your screen, you should see the Ask Questions link as well as QR code, in addition to the See the Answers link and QR code as well. So as questions are coming to your mind during the presentation, please make sure that you enter them into this Ask Question form to allow those other persons that are on the call to benefit from, one, that question, and two, that response once myself and our team, we will go into that form and provide that information. My apologies, because as I failed to mention that I do have several of my team members on the call with me today that will be assisting in various forms. All right, so let's talk about the enrollment roll forward portion. Up to this point, you've already had the opportunity to engage with Amy talking about the scheduling overview. And most recently, on last Friday, Jennifer Fogman did an exceptional job talking about the calendar roll forward wizard. So now that we have those pieces in place, now we want to begin prepping our students to get them into that next year that Jennifer talked to you about on Friday. So with our enrollment roll forward wizard, this is that tool that is going to be used to create those new enrollments for those students in that future calendar year. So specifically for our 26-27 year. And this is going to target those students who do not have an end date or on their current enrollment, meaning that they are still currently actively enrolled. Just some reminders. This is that one of the tools that's built within Infinite Campus that can be run multiple times throughout the current year. Say, for example, if you may have started the scheduling process up to this point, and you've actually done this roll forward portion, you can still go back and run this as many times as you need to after that initial time. So let's talk a little bit about some of the logic behind the roll forward wizard. So by default, it is going to promote those students to the next grade level in that sequence. So if you remember during implementation, one of the pieces that PSUs were required to go and look at and review were the grade level set up. So when you get to that particular screen, you saw your grade levels for your particular school on that screen, but then you also saw some interesting little sequences. So what the sequence determines is if a student is in one particular grade, based upon the sequence that assigned to that grade level determines how they will continue to move forward within the particular schools based upon that sequence. So you want to make sure that your sequencing is set up properly. Also, one of the logic pieces for the enrollment roll forward wizard is it determines the student's next calendar by their current enrollment. So for example, if I am a student in 24-25 Carter High School, just based upon my current enrollment in that particular calendar, it's going to say that Nicole is going to be moving forward to the 25-26 calendar for Carter High School as well. So that's just to give you a little bit of insight in some of the basic logic or the general logic as it relates to the enrollment roll forward wizard. Now, there is some other default logic or non-default logic that is a part of the roll forward wizard as well. So bear in mind or think about students that are going to be promoted to your next school. So, for example, those students who are in your fifth grades who are going to a middle school, your eighth grade students who are going to a high school. So, in that instance, you will need to do a little bit more work to indicate to make sure that those students that fall into that unique category are going to the next destination calendar. Okay. And if your PSU has unique situations such as school of choice, student reassignment, or any non consistent feeder patterns that are utilized by your PSU, you will also need to do some things a little bit differently for those babies. So, in that instance, or in those instances, you may need to do multiple roll forwards using some ad hoc filters that you've created, moving those students to the specific calendar as necessary. Or you can utilize that future enrollment field that is on that student's current enrollment record and providing some information manually to allow that student to be moved forward as necessary. One of the additional options that we've indicated here, so we've created actually, we didn't create it, but within Infinite Canvas, there is this future enrollment import possibility. So once you click on this link on this particular slide, it's going to navigate you to our NCSIS knowledge base article that talks about how to utilize this future enrollment import. Now, bear in mind, this is optional for importing future enrollment information into the current year's enrollment line. Also, bear in mind that if you have completed the enrollment roll forward process, which we will demonstrate in just a few moments, there is no need to use this import. Also, as a part of this process, we provided a template that is also available by clicking here. That is going to open up an Excel spreadsheet that allows you to complete some information for all of the students that are within the particular school that you are planning to utilize the import for. And then we provide you with the steps of how to re-import or import this particular document into your Infinite Campus instance to allow that information to populate. All right, going back over here. And then lastly, if your school is utilizing school boundaries, specifically students that may go to a individual school that is separate from a clear feed or outside of a clear feeding path, you may have to do some manual adjustments for those students as well to ensure that they are going to the appropriate next school for that future year. Okay, so as it relates to Roll Forward Wizard, some things that you need to be aware of prior to running the wizard. So you are going to need to make sure that that next calendar year has been created. As you remember, this was the piece that Jennifer talked about on last Friday, making sure that that future year is available to allow some things to be created and to begin working on. So that will need to be a part of your setup that is done prior to utilizing the wizard. If you are going to be retaining any students, you will need to indicate on their enrollment records, but specifically making sure that those pieces are in place if you are going to be running the roll forward wizard at the end of the year. So those students that will may still be coming back to that same school, that retention information will need to be added to that enrollment record. All right, you also going to need to end date enrollments for students who have withdrawn. But don't worry about that. Even if you have missed this piece, there is a way that you can clean this up and make sure that you touch those specific students that may fall into this unique situation. And we'll talk about that a little bit later as we get further into the webinar. So, but just as a FYI, you can go ahead and end date those students that have withdrawn before running this process. We talked about this a little bit a few moments ago, making sure that your grade level sequences are set and correct in preparation for this process. And again, for those PSUs that have a feeder program, you may need to do some school boundary cleanup prior to this particular piece, just to make sure that our babies are going to the appropriate school for that future year. Okay. For any of our charter friends that are on the call, you will not need to roll forward student enrollments if your school caps out at a grade. So in our example, if your school only has grades K through 8, your grade 8 students will not need a future enrollment for the upcoming year. Those students will be picked up by their respective schools that they will be attending in preparation for enrollment in that brand new year. Any program enrollment can be completed at a later time as well for those individual students, but that is specific for our charter school friends. Now, we talked about enrollment attributes when we were at DLE East and DLE West. So on this particular screen or slide, you want to make sure that you've done this reminder, making sure that those copies forward boxes have been checked in your production site. So very quickly, let's actually go into a training site to see where these pieces or these attributes live, breathe, and thrive. So as you can see, I am now in a training site on the screen. And so to navigate to our core attributes under your main menu, you're going to navigate to System Settings. Once you get to System Settings, and let's close this out. Wait, once you get to System Settings, you're going to come to your core attribute dictionary. So I'm going to close this and zoom in a little bit to give us some better viewing. All right, so as you see, this list or this attribute dictionary can be a little overwhelming. The great thing about this list is it is in alphabetical order. So what you will need to do is navigate to your enrollment. And when that opens up, your focus points will be your admission status. So you want to make sure that this box that says copies forward is checked. If your looks, oh, well, it looks like this one is locked in this particular training site. But if your box is not checked, you want to make sure the box is checked to make sure that information rolls forward. And so you will focus on your admission status. You will look at your resident district, your resident school, your serving district, and your serving school. Initially, we may have mentioned that the CRDC School of Accountability is an attribute that needs to roll forward as well. But as things have gone on and we continue to evolve within the world known as Infinite Campus and things have changed, it has been determined that we no longer need to have this CRDC School of Accountability attribute to copy forward. So once you have those attributes saved or checked, you want to make sure you click save and make sure those are placed. I have no modifications to save, so I'm just going to click OK, and then I'm just going to go back to my main menu. Okay. Next up, so now we have some information about the actual roll enrollment forward wizard process, but I'm actually now going to go back into my training site and actually do a demonstration of what this process looks like. The information that is listed here on the slide is for your information, but we actually wanted to make sure you got to see this magic happen in real and living color. All right, so once you are in your site, we do recommend performing this action in your sandbox first, as always, to make sure everything is working in decency and in order. So once you are in your site, you're going to navigate on your main menu to student information. And over here under General Student Administration, you are going to come to the Enrollment Roll Forward Wizard. Let's give us some more space. Zoom in a little bit. Okay. All right, so you will notice that at the top, I am working in 2526 Nixon School. Nixon School is a high school, so I'm going to be working with some high school students. And this is going to be an example for traditional purposes, not to look at or review any of the unique situations that you may encounter, such as your grade 5 or your grade 8 students that need to go to a brand new school outside of the school that they are currently enrolled in. But just as a reminder, so and we talk about this in our in scheduling checklist, your fifth graders, your eighth graders, and your 12th grade students, those students will be handled in a different manner. So I'm in 2526. It provides us with some information listed here at the top for your review, specifically for you to pay attention to before you begin your process. Your source calendar. What students am I going to be moving forward? So I am in Nixon High School 2526. So I want to grab my students who are in this 2526 school year and work with them. Who are the students that I want to move forward? So this is the next section where you are going to select your grade. So I'm going to grab my ninth graders, my 10th graders, and my 11th graders. All right. Source type, that is going to be primary. Those are those initial enrollments that we want to move forward. We don't want to do anything with our partial enrollments or secondary enrollments. So specifically for those students who may be cross enrolled. So we're just going to select our primary enrollments. I'm sorry. Under structure, you will need to select main. Then here, what is going to be our local start status? So for that brand new future year, we want all of our students to have that E1 initial enrollment. All right, I'm going to take a pause here for a moment. If you are doing the enrollment roll forward wizard for your program schools, so those are going to be the schools that are housed under that NCDPI umbrella, such as your LEP, your migrant, your OEC, and your other schools that may be listed upon that within that DPI umbrella. Those students for those students, they will have that N1 initial program enrollment for that program school information. Okay. But since we are working with traditional schools in this example, we want all of our babies to have that E1 local start status. We do not need to provide any additional information on this screen because based upon the logic of the wizard, it's going to take all of that information into account already because I'm just working with my 2526 Nixon High School. Down here at the bottom, we want to have our totals only box checked, and then we're going to click show warnings also. We highly recommend that you click this run test to allow you to see what is actually going to happen when you do this in real time. So what happens when you click run test, it opens up this tab for you and it alerts you that you are now in a test mode. It allows you to see what is happening with your students. So we see here in this example, I set up one of our students that is currently in 2526 grade 11 that is going to a completely different school that is outside of Nixon High School. So it's telling me that I have one student that is going there. And then for my ninth, my 10th, and my 11th graders, they are going to be enrolled into that next grade. And those are the number of students that are going to be enrolled into that grade level. So if everything works on this particular screen, you're ready to go. It meets your approval. Just close out this tab. It's going to bring you back to your enrollment roll forward wizard screen. And now I'm going to click run. When I click run, it's going to process for you. As you can see, we have a tab that's opened up that is loading. There you go. All right. And so this lets me now know that My process is complete, and these are my actual results. That one student that I had going to a different school has been moved over to Hoover High School. And then my ninth graders, my 10th graders, and my 11th graders have been enrolled into that next grade level. All right. So now, one of the things that or some of the things that you definitely want to verify after you've completed the process, just going to come back over here very quickly, and you want to double check your students, right? To make sure that they are now where they're supposed to be for their 26, 27 year. So when I come to my students, I'm going to look at my baby Maria Adams, and I can see that Maria now has, for the 26, 27 year, here is her grade 10 enrollment record where she is going to be enrolled in Nixon High School for next year. Also, because my attributes were set up to roll forward, here is her admission status. Here's her resident district, resident school, serving district, and serving school information that also rolled forward as well. For the student that I had designated to enroll in another school outside of Nixon High School, so just look at him very quickly. So that was Lucas Abel. Here we see that for 26, 27, Lucas is now going to be at Hoover High School in grade 12. And that here at the bottom, we have his admission status and his resident district rolls forward, but this for his resident district roll forward. But in this example, if Lucas doesn't have anything in these respective fields, then the user would need to update this information specifically for any outlier students. Okay. Going back to the enrollment roll forward wizard very quickly, just to talk about students that may live outside of the traditional scope of this process, such as those fifth graders or those eighth graders. Let's say, for example, Truman Middle School has some eighth grade students that are coming to Nixon High School. So in this example, you would be able to select Truman Middle School. You're going to select those eighth graders, right? Then down here at the bottom, you want to select your primary source, and then you're going to have to select your structure as well. We want those babies to be E1, but right here, there's this optional piece, destination calendar. So if they are 25, 26 Truman Middle School, we want them specifically to go over to, now in this example, these babies would be going over to, let's say 25, I'm sorry, 26, 27 Nixon School, right? So in this example, those students that do not meet that traditional roll forward and they are going to a school outside of their current school, you would need to indicate their destination calendar to make sure that they go to the appropriate location. Okay. Now going back to our presentation. All right, we've done the roll forward process, right? And so now, all right, after we've done the roll forward, some of the things that we just talked about, I verified that my future year students are appearing appropriately or correctly when I looked at Maria Adams, making sure that for your grade 8 students that are rolling forward into ninth grade, you want to make sure that you assign that graduation program, particularly if you are going to be using scheduling up in conjunction with the course plan. So if you're going to be using the course plan to schedule your students for the future year, you want to make sure that they have this graduation plan in place. And just as a reminder, you can continue to run that enrollment roll forward wizard as many times as you need to for any new students that enroll into your schools after you've completed the process. And so now one of the things that we talked about, so if there are some enrollments that you've rolled forward specifically as students that have withdrawn or will be withdrawn or are in the process of getting that end date, you can use this enrollment cleanup wizard. So the enrollment cleanup wizard, that is going to remove any of those future enrollments for students that are withdrawn or have withdrawn, but have a future enrollment in place. So the future enrollments are going to be removed using this cleanup wizard. So the cleanup wizard can be found under student information, under student general student admin, and under the enrollment cleanup wizard section or tool, in that same place where we found the enrollment roll forward wizard. When you come to this particular tool, it's going to open up the screen. It's going to provide you with some information at the top for reading to make sure that this is the places where you want to be. And this first radio button is delete those enrollments. So that is, again, it's going to remove those future enrollments that were created by that enrollment process. We do highly recommend that when you are doing this process, you are selecting the run test first to make sure that you can view those students that are going to be targeted as a part of this cleanup process. Okay. Also, let's say, for example, you need to do some updates to some enrollments. Specifically, let's say, for example, that there has been some discussion with your PSU regarding your calendar. You may have a tentative date for the first day of school, but as further conversations continue to happen and occur, the date of the calendar for the first day of school may change. So this method, number 4 under update enrollments, this will allow you to update those enrollments after that enrollment roll forward wizard process has been formed. And again, as a reminder, don't forget to select that run test first to make sure you are viewing those students who are being impacted by the process before you complete that run cleanup step. And lastly, the updating of enrollments as it relates to those copying forward of those enrollment attributes. Just let's say, for example, you have some new students that are being enrolled after you've run the process, and then you make some adjustments to their enrollment attributes. You can come to the cleanup wizard and copy forward those enrollment attributes for any existing students that may have been missed the first time, or any new students that may have enrolled after that initial process was run. And again, as a reminder, don't forget to click the run test first to see those students who are going to be impacted by the process before running the cleanup. All right. And just like that, not only have you not enrolled your students into that future year in preparation for scheduling, you will also have some resources that will help you provide or do that cleanup process in preparation for those students that do not need to be touched or scheduled for the upcoming future year. On this particular slide, we have some resources that we provided for your reference. Again, here is that scheduling workflow that I mentioned a few moments ago, that Jennifer talked about on Friday. Here is that link to the enrollment roll forward wizard article for Infinite Campus that provides some more detailed information about the overall general logic of how the process works as well. Here is the enrollment cleanup wizard Infinite Campus article also that provides you with some more detailed information about specifically what those methods on the cleanup wizard tool will allow you to do and how it will touch possibly enrollments that have been rolled forward using the wizard, and what manual enrollments that it will allow you to do some cleanup with. Additionally, here we have our link to our lunch and learns that are going to be available. I'm sorry, this link takes you to our recording webinars for our lunch and learns that are going to be housed on our NCSIS site. For your convenience, those are going to be housed listed here in the scheduling series particular section. And then also, as you are having conversations and thinking about the scheduling process, just as an additional reminder, make sure that you all are going to your case portal and log in a support ticket to request that scheduling support from the Infinite Campus side. So this is going to work in tandem and in additional support that the SIS professional team is providing with you all independently as well. All right. So our next Lunch and Learn series that are coming up on December the 2nd, we have one that's going to be talking about course planning rules, part 1. So you want to make sure that you jump on that call to make sure what is happening from the part 1 side. December the 5th is going to be course plan part 2. And then December the 12th, we're going to be looking at updating user groups in preparation for the next year. December the 16th, we have our course request and roster, and walk-in scheduler. I know that's going to be a phenomenal one, particularly depending upon what level or school level the staff members are at when they participate in this lunch and learn. And then we're also going to be looking at using course request on course plan and course plan in the student portal on December the 17th. All right, and always we continuously need your feedback to help us as a SIS professional learning team show us how we can improve upon the things that we are providing to you all out in the field. So please make sure that you come back or do it very now as soon as you close out of this call to come back and complete this feedback, because we definitely review your feedback and make adjustments as necessary. Okay, so Miss Karen, are there any questions that have come through? There we go. That have come through.
Yes, there have been several questions. You guys have been asking really wonderful questions. We've tried to answer as many as possible. A lot of the questions are in reference to that future enrollment import option and basically how to properly move students from changes that might happen if you roll forward now and what happens if they change schools or are retained. And so that process, we've tried to answer a lot of those questions for you in the question and answer form. And you can head back and look at that to kind of and I still see them coming in. So we'll continue to try to keep responding to those. So you'll have those as your
Absolutely.
reference. And then, of course, reach out to your CISPL consultant if you have very specific situations. But we're hoping to also cover all of your questions in the next couple of regional meetings that we have too. And we'll have more retention information as we get a little closer to the end of the school year as well.
Yes, thank you, Karen. All right. Well, if that is all, thank you all so much for taking time out of your lunch break to hang out with us a little bit today. I hope that everyone on the call will have a joyous and happy Thanksgiving. Please take this opportunity to spend time with your loved ones and your families as we head into this holiday season. Thank you all so much for attending. Enjoy the rest of your Monday.